Commander Jake Sullivan shifted uncomfortably in his chair, feeling the cool press of the crystalline seat against his back. The Galactic Council's grand chamber aboard the orbiting station of Kepler 442b was designed to intimidate, and it worked brilliantly. Towering walls of transparent crystal rose in elegant spires around the circular chamber, revealing the stars beyond and the verdant planet below. But Jake found no comfort in the view. Beside him, Ambassador Lisa Grant maintained her composed facade, though Jake noticed the slight tremble in her hands as she arranged her datapad. They were the only humans in a room filled with the 12 dominant species of the galaxy, and the weight of that isolation pressed upon them both. "They're staring at us like we're specimens in a lab," Jake whispered, his military posture never faltering despite his discomfort. 20 years as a fleet commander had trained him well, but nothing had prepared him for diplomacy at this level. "That's exactly what we are to them," Lisa replied, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Primitives who somehow managed to develop interstellar travel." A veteran diplomat who had negotiated humanity's first extrasolar mining rights. Lisa understood power dynamics better than most. The chamber hushed as High Counselor Vexathera entered, 8 feet tall, with crystalline exoskeletal plating that caught the starlight in prismatic flares. The alien moved with deliberate grace toward the elevated central platform. 4 upper limbs gestured in formal greeting, while 2 lower ones adjusted the ceremonial robes that designated supreme authority. "The Council recognizes the human delegation," Vexathera announced, voice resonating through the chamber without any apparent amplification. "You may present your petition regarding the Tiety system colonies." Jake watched as Lisa rose, her small frame somehow commanding attention amid the towering aliens. He admired her courage. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community, confined to the Outer Rim colonies by Council decree. Even being granted this audience had taken years of diplomatic pressure. "High Counselor, esteemed delegates," Lisa began. "Humanity respectfully requests reconsideration of the Council's territorial decree regarding the Tiety system. Our settlements there have thrived for 3 generations, terraforming previously uninhabitable worlds and establishing—" "The Council is aware of your unauthorized expansion," interrupted Vexathera, upper limbs forming a gesture that Jake had learned indicated dismissal. "The Tiety system falls within the designated expansion zone of the hegemony, as determined by Council cartography 2 centuries before your species achieved even rudimentary spaceflight. The hegemony representative, a massive amorphous entity contained within an environment suit, pulsed with smug satisfaction. Jake felt his jaw tighten. "With respect," Lisa continued, "when humans arrived, the system was uninhabited. We've invested considerable resources in making those worlds livable. The Council's own Charter of Settlement grants development rights to recognize species." Vexathera interrupted again. "Humanity's recognition status remains provisional, pending cultural integration assessment." Jake couldn't contain himself any longer. "Those assessments have been pending for 70 years, he said, rising to stand beside Lisa. "Meanwhile, 3 million humans call Teddy home." A ripple of murmurs passed through the delegates. Speaking out of turn was considered deeply improper in Council proceedings. Vexathera's crystalline features caught the light in a way that somehow conveyed contempt. "The Council has reached its determination. Commander Sullivan, the human colonies in the Tiety system will be evacuated within 30 standard days. The hegemony will then assume administrative control." 30 days? That's impossible," Lisa protested. "Evacuation of 3 million people would take months, even with our entire transport fleet." "Then you should begin immediately," Vexathera replied coldly. "Any humans remaining after the deadline will become subject to hegemony labor protocols." The meaning was clear: slavery. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "And should Earth refuse this order?" Lisa asked, her voice barely controlled. Vexathera's upper limbs formed a gesture Jake didn't recognize. Then, corrective action will be taken. The Council has approved orbital pacification measures if necessary. Planetary glassing. The Council's euphemism for the complete destruction of all life on a world's surface. Jake had seen the aftermath once, during a diplomatic tour of a system that had rebelled. Nothing remained but vitrified sand and ash. "This is not negotiation," Jake said quietly. "It's an ultimatum." "Precisely, Commander," Vexathara confirmed. "This audience is concluded. You have 30 days. The journey back to Earth passed in tense silence. Jake and Lisa spent most of it reviewing options, all of which seemed increasingly bleak. "They've been planning this for years," Lisa said, staring at the tactical display in their transport's secure conference room. "The timing isn't coincidental. Earth's defense fleet is deployed to protect the Rigel colonies from those pirate incursions." Jake nodded grimly. "Even if we recalled every ship, we'd be outnumbered 10-1. The Council fleet assigned to oversee the evacuation has 800 vessels. And the hegemony gets what it's always wanted: control of the thorium deposits in the tidy asteroid belt." Lisa's voice was bitter. 3 million displaced humans is just a bonus for them. As their ship approached Earth's orbital defense perimeter, Jake gazed out at the blue-green world below. Home. For how much longer? "We need a miracle," he murmured. Lisa's expression was grave as she gathered her diplomatic pouch. "Let's hope Dr. Carter has one." The White House Situation Room hummed with tension. President Helen Moore sat at the head of the long table, her face grave as she listened to the report. Around her sat the Joint Chiefs, intelligence directors, and key cabinet members, all wearing expressions ranging from shock to fury. 30 days before they enslave our people or glass the planets. President Moore summarized after Jake and Lisa had finished their briefing. "And an 800-ship armada to enforce it." "Yes, Madam President," Jake confirmed. "The Council isn't interested in negotiation." "We've seen this coming since the Mars colony standoff," the President said, referencing the tense episode 3 years earlier when Council ships had blockaded Earth's most populous off-world settlement. "But I hoped we'd have more time." "Time for what, exactly?" General Williams asked, his weathered face skeptical. "Even with the entire Earth fleet, we'd be committing suicide to fight them." "Not necessarily," came a new voice from the doorway. All heads turned to see Dr. Benjamin Carter enter the room, tall and lanky, with perpetually disheveled gray hair. The physicist looked distinctly out of place among the uniforms and suits. Yet the respectful silence that greeted him spoke volumes. "Dr. Carter," President Moore acknowledged, "I hope you've brought us options." "Better than options, Madam President," Carter replied, setting down his secure datapad. "I've brought you a fleet." Confused glances circulated around the table. "Project Umbra," Carter continued, activating a holographic display above the table. 20 ships, fully operational, ready for immediate deployment. The hologram showed sleek vessels, unlike any in Earth's known fleet. Matte black. They seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, with unconventional geometries that defied standard aerospace design principles. "Where the hell did these come from?" demanded Admiral Chen, the Space Force commander. "I oversee all fleet construction." "Titan shipyards," Carter replied simply. "Built inside Saturn's moon over the past 15 years, using technology derived from my dark matter research." President Moore's eyes narrowed. 15 years. Since the Council first restricted our territorial expansion. Carter nodded. "A contingency we hoped never to need." He expanded the hologram, highlighting the ship's internal systems. "These vessels operate on principles entirely unknown to the Council races. Phase shift drives that can transition between normal space and what we call dark space. Quantum erasure weapons capable of removing matter from existence, and unlimited power from dark matter reactors." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "You're telling me," Jake said carefully, That we have 20 ships that can, what? Become invisible? Pass through solid matter? Not invisible, Carter corrected. Shifted into a parallel phase state where they interact minimally with normal matter. Weapons pass through them. Sensors can't detect them. And yes, they can pass through solid objects if necessary. Lisa leaned forward. And these erasure weapons? Carter's expression grew somber. They sever the quantum connections that bind matter together, causing instant and complete disintegration. No radiation, no explosion, no debris. The target simply ceases to exist. My God, whispered the Secretary of Defense. We've kept this technology completely compartmentalized, Carter explained. The project exists under no official designation. Funding came through a maze of classified programs. Even the workers who built the ships were told they were constructing deep space research vessels. Why wasn't I informed? President Moore asked, her tone measured but firm. Plausible deniability, Carter replied. If the Council ever discovered the project, Earth's leadership could truthfully claim no knowledge. The fewer people who knew, the safer the secret. Until now, Jake observed. Until now, Carter agreed. Because now we need them. The president stood, walking to the window overlooking the White House lawn. 20 ships against 800. 20 ships they can't see, can't hit, and can't defend against, Carter corrected. One dark matter vessel could theoretically eliminate the entire Council fleet. And who would crew these ships? General Williams asked. If they're as advanced as you claim, they'd need specially trained personnel. We have crews, Carter said. Captain Amy Brooks commands the UES Nightfall, the fleet flagship. Her officers and crew have been training in Saturn space for 3 years. President Moore turned back to the table. You've been thorough, Dr. Carter. We needed to be, he replied simply. Jake studied the holographic ships. Military instincts already calculating possibilities. How quickly can they deploy to Tatey? The phase shift drive doesn't work like conventional FTL, Carter explained. These ships could be there in hours, not days. Lisa's diplomatic mind was already racing ahead. The strategic advantage of surprise is significant, but using these weapons without warning could be seen as an extreme escalation. The Council might retaliate against Earth directly. If we show our hand first, request negotiations based on our new capabilities, we lose the element of surprise. Jake countered. The Council has spies everywhere. They'd prepare countermeasures, or worse, launch a preemptive strike. President Moore returned to her seat, her decision already visible in her posture. We didn't start this conflict, but we will finish it. Dr. Carter, please connect us with Captain Brooks. I want to know everything about these ships and their capabilities before I commit them to battle. The quantum-secured communication channel crackled to life, revealing the bridge of the UES Nightfall. Captain Amy Brooks stood center frame, her uniform unlike any standard Earth design, black with subtle silver accents, bearing no rank insignia beyond a simple silver star at her collar. Madam President, Brooks acknowledged with a crisp nod. At 35, she was young for her command, with close-cropped black hair and the focused intensity of someone who had dedicated their life to a single purpose. Captain Brooks, President Moore replied, I understand you've been preparing for this day for some time. Yes, ma'am. The dark matter fleet is fully operational and combat-ready. All crews are at optimal proficiency with both defensive and offensive systems. And you believe 20 ships can prevail against 800? The President asked directly. Brooks didn't hesitate. Absolutely, Madam President. In simulations, a single ship consistently neutralized 50-plus adversaries without sustaining damage. The phase technology renders conventional weapons useless against us. Tell me about your crew, Jake interjected. 200 personnel per ship, Brooks replied. Hand-picked from military special operations, advanced weapons research, and theoretical physics backgrounds. They've trained together in a closed environment for years. And they understand what these erasure weapons do? Lisa asked, her concern evident. Brooks's expression tightened. They do, Ambassador. The psychological impact has been extensively addressed in our training. These aren't conventional weapons of war. They don't damage or destroy. They erase. We've prepared our personnel for the moral weight of that responsibility. Jake understood immediately. He had ordered strikes that killed enemy combatants, but never anything that made them simply cease to exist. The psychological difference was profound. Captain, President Moore said, I am authorizing Operation Shadow Strike. Your fleet will deploy to Tahiti immediately to counter the Council Armada. Your primary objective is to protect our colonies and prevent evacuation. Your secondary objective is to neutralize the Council military threat with minimal loss of life. Understood, Madam President, Brooks replied. And our rules of engagement? You are authorized to use quantum erasure weapons against military targets only, and only after giving the Council one opportunity to withdraw. The President said firmly, We're defending our people, not starting a galactic massacre. What about the Galactic Council itself? Jake asked. The political body, not just their military. The President considered this. Once their fleet is neutralized, we'll open diplomatic channels. Ambassador Grant will take the lead. Lisa straightened. With your permission, Madam President, I'd like to be present for the operation. If we succeed, immediate diplomatic follow-up will be critical. Agreed. The President nodded. Commander Sullivan, you'll accompany the ambassador as my military representative. Jake felt a mix of dread and determination settle in his stomach. After 20 years of military service, he was about to witness a kind of warfare beyond anything humanity had previously imagined. We depart in 2 hours, Brooks announced. Commander, Ambassador, we'll prepare quarters for you aboard Nightfall. As the communication ended, President Moore addressed the room. This information is classified at the highest level. As of this moment, Operation Shadow Strike is our only hope of saving 3 million citizens, and perhaps Earth itself. If there are any objections, speak now. The room remained silent. Then, may God help us all, the President said quietly. Because after today, nothing in the galaxy will ever be the same. The UES Nightfall hung in space above Saturn, its dark hull barely visible against the void, despite the golden light of the distant sun. Jake stood on the observation deck, watching as the other 19 vessels of the dark matter fleet moved into formation. Their unconventional design was more apparent in person, hulls flowing in organic curves that seemed to drink in the light, with no visible weapons ports or engine exhausts. Impressive, aren't they? Jake turned to find Captain Brooks beside him, her eyes fixed on the assembling fleet. Unlike anything I've ever seen, Jake admitted. I've commanded destroyers, cruisers, even a dreadnought once. But they're something else entirely. They're the future, Brooks said simply. Or at least, a possible future. One where humanity isn't subjugated at the whim of species that reach the stars before us. Jake studied her profile. You've dedicated your life to these ships, to a war that might never have come. And now it has, she replied, turning to face him. In 2 hours, we phase shift to Tahiti. 1 hour after that, either we've changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever, or we've failed and Earth faces extinction. Her voice remained steady, matter of fact. How do you handle it? Jake asked. The pressure? Brooks's expression softened slightly. I remind myself what we're fighting for. Not just survival, but the right to determine our own future. The Council's been holding humanity back for decades, restricting our colonies, limiting our technology. Today, that ends. A subtle vibration ran through the deck as the ship's systems powered up. I should check on Ambassador Grant, Jake said, and review the battle plans one more time. Brooks nodded. Bridge briefing in 90 minutes. Commander, we'll go over the final approach then. As Jake made his way through the ship's corridors, he noted the calm efficiency of the crew. Unlike the controlled chaos he was accustomed to during pre-battle preparations, Nightfall's personnel moved with quiet purpose, their black uniforms creating the impression of shadows flowing through the ship. He found Lisa in her assigned quarters, reviewing council protocols on her secure tablet. "How are you holding up?" he asked, closing the door behind him. "Processing," she replied, setting the tablet aside. 25 years in diplomatic service, and I never imagined being part of a military operation that could reshape galactic politics overnight. Jake sat across from her. "Having second thoughts?" "About protecting our colonies." "No," Lisa said firmly. "About unleashing technology this powerful?" "Yes. These weapons, they don't just kill, Jake. They erase. No bodies to bury. No wreckage to salvage. Just gone." "I know," Jake said quietly. "I've been wrestling with it too. But what's the alternative? Let them take our people, glass our worlds?" Lisa shook her head. "There's no good answer. I just hope we can contain this. Afterward. Power like this. It changes things. Changes people." "That's why you're here," Jake reminded her. "To make sure we win the peace after we win the war." Their conversation was interrupted by the ship-wide announcement system. "All personnel, prepare for phase shift in 60 minutes. Senior officers report to the bridge." Jake stood. Time to make history. Or end it. The bridge of the UES Nightfall resembled no conventional starship command center. Instead of the standard array of stations and displays, it was arranged in concentric circles around a central holographic projection. The lighting was subdued, casting everything in a blue-gray glow that reduced eye strain during long operations. Captain Brooks stood at the primary command position, reviewing final preparations with her executive officer. As Jake and Lisa entered, she motioned them forward. "Commander, Ambassador, welcome to the bridge," Brooks said. "We're approaching phase shift initiation." The holographic display showed the Teti system in exquisite detail. 3 terraformed planets, asteroid belts rich with mining operations, and the massive Council Armada in high orbit around Teti Prime, the most populated human colony. "The Council fleet is in standard enforcement formation," Brooks explained. 800 vessels, including 27 dreadnoughts, over 100 cruisers, and numerous support craft. They're positioning for orbital bombardment capability. Jake studied the disposition of forces. "They're not expecting resistance. Their shields are at minimum power, weapon systems in standby mode. They have no reason to expect a fight," Brooks agreed. "As far as they know, Earth has nothing that could challenge even a tenth of their fleet." Lisa leaned closer to the display. "Where will we emerge?" "Here," Brooks indicated, highlighting points surrounding the Council Armada. "The fleet will materialize in a spherical formation, completely encircling their forces. Standard phase shift protocols place a minimum safe distance of 10 kilometers between vessels upon emergence." "And then?" Lisa asked. "Then I open communications and offer them one chance to withdraw," Brooks replied. "As ordered." "And if they refuse?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then we demonstrate the consequences of threatening human worlds," Brooks said simply. The bridge crew took their positions as final countdown procedures began. Jake and Lisa were directed to observer stations with secure harnesses. Phase shift transition could be disorienting for the uninitiated. "All ships report ready, Captain," announced the tactical officer. "Fleet-wide phase shift in 30 seconds," Brooks confirmed, taking her command seat. "Transition protocols active." Jake felt a subtle change in the air pressure, a slight ringing in his ears. The lighting dimmed further as power diverted to the phase shift drive. 10 seconds, came the countdown. 9, 8. Brooks's voice remained perfectly calm. "All personnel, prepare for transition. 3, 2, 1, initiating phase shift." Reality changed. Jake's perception warped. As the ship seemed to slide sideways through dimensions his mind couldn't properly process. For a split second, he saw not stars, but something else. Geometric patterns that made his eyes hurt. Colors that had no names in human language. Then, as suddenly as it began, the sensation passed. On the main display, the star field reappeared, now centered on the Tiety system. And there, exactly as predicted, hung the Council Armada, massive, imposing vessels of alien design, unaware of what had just materialized around them. "Phase shift complete," reported the navigation officer. "All 20 ships in position. Phase state holding at optimal levels. We're completely out of phase with normal space." Brooks explained to Jake and Lisa. "Their sensors can't detect us. Their weapons can't touch us. We're essentially ghosts." "How long can we maintain this state?" Jake asked. "Indefinitely," Brooks replied. "The dark matter reactors provide unlimited power for phase maintenance." She rose from her chair, standing before the tactical display. "Shift to phase state Alpha 3. Maintain erasure weapons lock on all Council vessels, prioritizing command ships and weapons platforms." "Phase state Alpha 3 engaged," confirmed the systems officer. Jake recognized the technical terminology from his briefing. Alpha 3 was a partial phase state that allowed communications with normal space while maintaining defensive phase protection. The ship would be visible, but still invulnerable. "Open fleet-wide broadcast on all Council frequencies," Brooks ordered. "Let them see us." On the main display, Jake watched as the Council fleet's orderly formation suddenly erupted into chaos. Alert signals flashed across enemy vessels as they detected the human ships that had appeared from nowhere. "This is Captain Amy Brooks of the United Earthship Nightfall," Brooks announced, her voice steady and authoritative. "To the commander of the Galactic Council Armada, your forces are completely surrounded by the Earth Dark Matter Fleet. Your vessels are currently targeted by weapons beyond your defensive capabilities." She paused, allowing the message to sink in. "The Tiety system and its colonies remain under Earth jurisdiction. Your evacuation order is rejected. You will power down your weapons, withdraw your vessels from this system immediately, and inform the Galactic Council that the sovereign rights of humanity are not subject to negotiation." The response was predictable but still disappointing. "Human vessel," came the contemptuous reply from the Council flagship. "Your deception is noted but ineffective. 20 ships, however they appeared, pose no threat to this armada. Stand down immediately or face the consequences of your defiance." Tactical displays showed Council vessels powering weapon systems, shields raising to maximum. "They're targeting our ships," reported the tactical officer. "Multiple weapons locks detected." Brooks looked to Jake. "Commander Sullivan, as the President's military representative, I await your orders." Jake felt the weight of 3 million lives, and perhaps humanity's future, on his shoulders. He exchanged a glance with Lisa, who gave him a solemn nod. "Captain Brooks," he said formally, "you are authorized to demonstrate Earth's defensive capabilities." Brooks turned to her tactical officer. "Target the 3 outermost dreadnoughts. Erasure beam at minimum power. Duration 1 second." "Targeting confirmed," came the response. "Erasure beams locked." "Fire," Brooks commanded. There was no dramatic beam of light, no explosion, no shockwave. One moment, 3 massive Council dreadnoughts hung in space. The next, they simply weren't there. No debris, no radiation signature, nothing. As if they had never existed at all. The silence on the bridge was profound, even expecting it. Seeing the erasure weapon in action was deeply unsettling. "By the stars," Lisa whispered. The Council fleet froze in confusion. Sensors would be showing impossible readings. The complete absence of 3 capital ships without any indication of what had happened to them. "Reopen communications," Brooks ordered. "This is your final warning," she continued. "The weapon just demonstrated can target any vessel in the system with the same result. All Council ships will power down weapons, deactivate shields, and prepare for immediate departure. The response from the Council flagship came swiftly, but not in words. A barrage of plasma torpedoes and quantum disruptors fired from multiple vessels, all targeting the Nightfall. Jake tensed instinctively, but Brooks remained impassive as the weapons fire passed harmlessly through the partially phased ship. As expected, she noted, shift to phase state 0, prepare for full engagement. The ship slipped completely out of phase again, becoming invisible to Council sensors. All vessels, execute attack pattern Umbra, Brooks commanded. Target weapon systems and engines only where possible. Minimize crew casualties. What followed could barely be called a battle. The Dark Matter Fleet's ships phased in and out of normal space, appearing just long enough to fire erasure beams before shifting away again. Council vessels fired desperately at targets they could barely track, their weapons passing through the phase-shifted human ships without effect. Jake watched with a mix of awe and horror as Council ships vanished, one after another. The tactical display showed erasure patterns targeting specific sections of larger vessels, weapons emplacements, engine nacelles, command towers, leaving the main hulls intact where possible. Council flagship is attempting to coordinate a retreat, reported the communications officer. Multiple vessels breaking formation. On the main display, the once orderly armada had devolved into chaos. Some ships attempted to flee. Others continued fighting, firing blindly into space hoping to hit the phantom attackers. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, announced the communications officer. Priority channel. Brooks nodded. On screen, the image of High Counselor Vexathera appeared. Crystalline features no longer conveying smug superiority, but naked fear. Captain Brooks, the alien said, voice strained. You have made your point. We request cessation of hostilities to discuss terms. There is nothing to discuss, Counselor, Brooks replied coldly. Your fleet will withdraw from Tatey space immediately. The evacuation order is permanently rescinded. And if we comply? Vexathera asked. Then you will live to deliver a message to the Galactic Council, Brooks said. Ambassador Grant will board your vessel to present Earth's terms directly. Vexathera's 4 upper limbs formed a gesture of acquiescence. We will comply, cease fire, and we will receive your ambassador. Brooks looked to Lisa, who nodded. Prepare a shuttle, Brooks ordered. Commander Sullivan will accompany the ambassador as security. As the transmission ended, Brooks turned to Jake and Lisa. History awaits you both, she said quietly. Make it count. The Council flagship Void Render dwarfed the human shuttle as it approached the docking bay. Once an imposing symbol of galactic dominance, the massive vessel now bore the scars of the brief, one-sided engagement, entire sections precisely excised by erasure beams, leaving smooth-edged gaps in its ornate hull. Jake sat beside Lisa in the shuttle's passenger compartment, both now dressed in formal diplomatic attire. A squad of Nightfall's security personnel accompanied them, wearing powered armor of the same light-absorbing material as the ships. They'll be frightened, Lisa noted, reviewing her notes one final time. Fear makes some species aggressive, others compliant. With Vexathera, expect defensiveness disguised as formality. Jake nodded, checking his sidearm, a conventional pistol, as Brooks had advised against bringing phase technology weapons onto the Council vessel. Just remember, we're negotiating from absolute strength. They've just witnessed what one of our ships can do. We have 19 more. Power is only useful if wielded wisely, Lisa reminded him. Our goal isn't to replace one galactic tyranny with another. The shuttle docked with practiced precision. As the airlock cycled, Jake took a deep breath, centering himself for whatever came next. The Council's reception party consisted of Vexathera and representatives from 5 other major species, all maintaining a rigid formal posture that couldn't quite hide their unease. The cavernous docking bay, normally teeming with activity, was eerily empty, save for their small welcoming committee. Ambassador Grant, Commander Sullivan. Vexithera greeted them, upper limbs forming the ceremonial welcome gesture that was rarely extended to humans. The council chamber has been prepared for our discussion. The walk through the flagship's corridors was telling. Crew members stopped and stared as the human delegation passed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to poorly concealed hostility. Twice, Jake noticed sections where erasure beams had struck, perfect circular holes through multiple decks, the edges unnaturally smooth. The council chamber aboard the flagship was a smaller version of the Grand Hall on Kepler 442b, designed with the same intimidating architecture. But now, as Jake and Lisa took their seats opposite the alien delegates, the power dynamic had clearly shifted. "The terms of our withdrawal have been accepted," Vexithara began without preamble. "The Taiti system will remain under human control. We acknowledge your unexpected military capability." "That's merely the beginning," Lisa replied, her diplomatic training evident in her measured tone. "Earth's terms extend far beyond the Taiti situation." She activated a holographic display showing a revised galactic map. "The restrictive colonial boundaries imposed on humanity are hereby dissolved. Earth claims unrestricted expansion rights to any uninhabited system within this region." The map highlighted a section of space 4 times larger than humanity's previously allowed territory. Murmurs of protest rose from the delegates, but Vexithara silenced them with a sharp gesture. "Furthermore," Lisa continued, "the Galactic Council's structure will be reformed. The hierarchical system of recognized and provisional species ends today. A new Galactic Parliament will be established, with equal representation for all spacefaring civilizations." "Impossible!" burst out the hegemony representative, its amorphous form pulsing with agitation. "The Council has maintained galactic order for millennia. You cannot simply—" "We already have," Jake interrupted. "Your 800 ships couldn't stop 20 of ours. The old order ended today." Lisa gave him a warning glance before continuing. "However, Earth has no desire to rule through force, which brings me to our final term." She placed a data crystal on the table. "This contains the principles of what we call the Dark Matter Charter. Earth is prepared to share phase shift technology for peaceful purposes, medical applications, disaster relief, scientific exploration, under strict ethical oversight." Vexithera's crystalline features caught the light in a pattern Jake now recognized as suspicion. "And the weapons? The erasure technology?" "Remains with Earth," Lisa confirmed, "as a safeguard against any future attempts to subjugate developing species. We will serve as guarantors of galactic equality, not conquerors." "You expect us to simply accept this revolutionary proposal?" asked the representative of the Manturi Collective, a reptilian species known for their conservative approach to governance. "No," Lisa replied honestly. "We expect resistance, skepticism, and fear. Change is never easy, especially for empires accustomed to dominance. But consider the alternative." She gestured to the visible damage to the ship around them. "Today, we erased weapons and engines. We could have erased entire civilizations. Instead, we're offering partnership." Silence fell over the chamber as the delegates processed her words. Finally, Vexithara spoke. "The Galactic Council will consider your proposal. In the meantime, a ceasefire will be maintained, and the Taiti evacuation order is officially rescinded." "A wise first step," Lisa acknowledged. "Earth will expect a formal response regarding the Galactic Parliament within 30 days, the same time frame you gave our colonies." As the meeting concluded, Jake noticed the subtle shift in how the alien delegates regarded them, no longer with contempt, but with wary respect. It wasn't friendship or trust, but it was a beginning. Aboard the shuttle, returning to nightfall, Lisa finally allowed herself to relax slightly. "Phase 1 complete," she said quietly. "You think they'll actually agree to the Parliament?" Jake asked. They don't have much choice, she replied. But rebuilding galactic politics on a foundation of fear isn't sustainable. We need to transition quickly from intimidation to cooperation. Jake looked out the viewport at the stars. Trust has to be earned on both sides. But for the first time, humanity has a seat at the table, not because it was granted to us, but because we took it. And what we do with that seat, Lisa added, will determine whether today marks the beginning of a more just galaxy, or just a changing of the guard. 6 months later, Captain Amy Brooks stood on the bridge of the UES Nightfall, observing the diplomatic shuttle approaching the Riel asteroid cluster. Now, serving as the flagship of the newly established Galaxy Peacekeeping Force, Nightfall's mission had evolved from warfare to mediation. "Shuttle on final approach. Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Reyes at the tactical station. "Ambassador Grant's delegation is ready to begin arbitration between the mining factions." Brooks nodded. "Maintain phase state beta. Visible but protected." The ship shimmered slightly as it adjusted its phase relationship with normal space, a reminder of its capabilities without the direct threat. In the 6 months since the Battle of Tahiti, though battle seemed an overstatement for such a one-sided engagement, the Dark Matter Fleet had transitioned to a new role as peacekeepers and humanitarian support. The holographic display showed the disputed asteroid field, where competing mining operations, one human, one hegemony, had threatened to escalate into open conflict. With the Galactic Parliament still in its formative stages, such disputes fell to the peacekeeping force to resolve. "Status of the hegemony cruisers?" Brooks asked. "Maintaining position at the agreed 20,000-kilometer boundary." Reyes confirmed. "No weapons activation detected." Brooks allowed herself a small smile. 6 months ago, the hegemony wouldn't have hesitated to simply seize the asteroid field by force. Today, they waited while diplomats sought compromise. Progress, however tenuous. The communications officer turned from his station. "Captain, incoming message from Earth Command. Admiral Sullivan requests your presence for the quantum briefing." Brooks had expected this. Jake Sullivan's promotion to admiral had come alongside his appointment as Earth's military liaison to the interim Galactic Parliament. His insights into the evolving political landscape were invaluable. "Transfer to my ready room," she instructed, turning command over to her executive officer. In the privacy of her office, Brooks activated the quantum encrypted channel. Jake's image appeared instantly, despite the vast distance separating them. "Captain," he greeted her with a nod. "How's the Riel situation developing?" "Cautiously optimistic," she replied. "The hegemony representative actually proposed a joint mining operation this morning. Lisa's team is working out the details now." Jake's expression remained serious. "Good. We need every diplomatic win we can get right now. The transition isn't going as smoothly in other sectors." "Problems with the parliament formation?" Brooks asked. "Some resistance from the old guard," Jake confirmed. "General Zorak has rallied several council loyalists. They're calling our dark matter technology an abomination, claiming it violates natural law." Brooks had expected resistance. "Military threats?" "Not yet," Jake said. "But our intelligence suggests they're exploring countermeasures to phase technology. We've detected unusual energy signatures near the crystal expanse, possibly experimental weapons research." "The Nightfall could investigate," Brooks offered. Jake shook his head. "Not yet. We need you mediating the Riel dispute, but I've assigned Captain Nina Rodriguez and her intelligence team to monitor the situation." Brooks knew Rodriguez by reputation, a former colony coordinator who had joined Galactic Intelligence after losing family in a council peacekeeping action years earlier. Tough, brilliant, and deeply committed to preventing future abuses of power. "What about the humanitarian deployments?" Brooks asked, changing the subject to more positive developments. Here, Jake's expression lightened. "Exceeding expectations. The medical applications of phase technology have revolutionized treatment of previously incurable conditions. The terraforming team on Kepler 438b has accelerated atmospheric conversion by 30% using phase-shifted catalysts. He forwarded a data packet showing the various projects underway across human and alien worlds. Famine relief using phase transport of emergency supplies. Disaster response teams phasing through rubble to reach survivors. Wormhole-equivalent trade routes established through controlled phase corridors. The charter is working, Brooks observed. Peaceful applications advancing faster than we predicted. Yes and no, Jake cautioned. 90% of species are embracing the shared technology. It's the other 10% I'm worried about. Those who see our refusal to share weapons technology as merely establishing a new dominance. Brooks understood the concern. Dark matter technology was a double-edged sword. Its peaceful applications were revolutionary, but its military potential remained terrifying. Earth's policy of maintaining exclusive control over erasure weapons was pragmatic, but created inevitable resentment. Have you considered Rodriguez's proposal? Brooks asked carefully. About limited defensive technology sharing with trusted allies. Jake's expression turned thoughtful. It's under review. The challenge is determining who qualifies as trusted in a galaxy where alliances shift with political winds. Their conversation was interrupted by a priority alert on Jake's end. I need to take this, he said. Encrypted intelligence report from Rodriguez. Maintain your position at Riel and complete the mediation. I'll update you once I've reviewed her findings. As Jake's image disappeared, Brooks turned to the viewport, watching as the diplomatic shuttle docked with the neutral station where negotiations were taking place. Peace was always more complicated than war, requiring constant vigilance and endless compromise. On the secure orbital intelligence hub circling Earth, Captain Nena Rodriguez reviewed the final details of her report. The holographic display before her showed surveillance footage of a clandestine meeting in the shadows of the crystal expanse. General Zorak, once the Council's military commander, now in exile, conferring with representatives of 3 crystalline species known for their quantum manipulation abilities. They're definitely building something, said Lieutenant Park, her analysis expert. Energy readings are consistent with quantum interference technology, possibly designed to disrupt phase fields. Rodriguez nodded, her expression grim. The scars along her jawline, remnants of her escape from a council purge of human settlements years ago, seemed more pronounced in the dim light of the intelligence center. How close are they to a functional prototype? She asked. Hard to say, Park admitted. But the supply chains we've tracked suggest accelerated development. They're acquiring rare materials at an alarming rate. Rodriguez compiled the final data points into her encrypted report for Admiral Sullivan. The galaxy was changing rapidly, but power vacuums never remained empty for long. The Council loyalists wouldn't accept their diminished status without a fight. We've identified 15 key conspirators, she noted, highlighting figures in the display. All former Council military or scientific personnel displaced by the new parliament structure. Do we move against them? Park asked. Rodriguez considered the question carefully. Earth's new position demanded restraint. They couldn't simply erase potential threats without becoming exactly what they had fought against. Not yet, she decided. We watch, we gather evidence, and we prepare contingencies. The Admiral needs options, not just warnings. As she transmitted the completed report, Rodriguez gazed at the tactical display showing the positions of Earth's dark matter fleet throughout the galaxy. 20 ships maintaining a fragile peace through their mere existence. A power so great, it required perfect restraint. The quantum communicator chimed, indicating Admiral Sullivan had received her report and would review it immediately. Good. Jake Sullivan understood the delicate balance they were trying to maintain. Power without tyranny. Security without oppression. Rodriguez turned her attention to the intelligence feeds from a dozen worlds where the new Galactic Parliament was taking shape. Democracy was messy, especially on a galactic scale with species whose fundamental values and perceptions differed radically. But it was happening, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. The communicator chimed again. A response from Sullivan, brief but clear. Monitoring authorized. Prepare defensive options only. Parliament must succeed on its own merits, not our protection. Rodriguez acknowledged the order. He was right. Of course. The dark matter technology had given humanity the leverage to break the Council's dominance. But lasting change would come only through cooperation, not force. Still, as she watched the surveillance footage of Zorak's conspirators, she couldn't help but prepare for the worst. Peace required vigilance. Freedom demanded protection. Lieutenant Park, she said decisively, establish surveillance on all identified conspirators. I want to know their movements, communications, acquisitions. If they're building anti-phase weapons, I want to know before they test the first prototype. Yes, Captain, Park replied, already programming the parameters. Rodriguez's gaze returned to the galactic display, where the UES Nightfall's position was highlighted near the Riel asteroids. Captain Brooks was out there, showing the galaxy a different way forward. Strength tempered by restraint, power guided by principle. The ship's distinctive hull, designed to absorb rather than reflect light, symbolized humanity's new role perfectly. Visible when needed, invisible when necessary, and always capable of decisive action. A shadow protecting the light of a new galactic order. In the vast darkness between stars, the future remained unwritten. But for the first time, humanity held the pen.